Do not attempt to adjust your dial. Ba-da-bum-bum-bum. It's your boy Big Vern. This is App Stupid, the fastest growing sports and entertainment show on these YouTube streets. You're welcome. Holla at us. What up, what up, what up? It's your boy Big Vern. Shout out to everybody who's rocking with us on a wild and wet Wednesday here in the Midwest. If you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. Please hit the like and subscribe button. It goes a long way, helps the channel, and we appreciate it. So we left off, we talked about Louisville in the ACC. They had beat Georgia Tech. Going to pivot from the ACC and talk some Big Ten football. Michigan beat on USC, something terrible. And when I was watching this game, I was looking at Miller Moss. As you all know, here at App Stupid in the Pit, I'm a huge Miller Moss guy. But to see him take the hits he took, that guy responded because he could have dialed it in at the half. He could have dialed it in, and it was the exact opposite. At halftime, this thing was 14-3. He had taken so many demonstrative hits. Even after the sacks, it was, like I said, if Michigan couldn't get to him and sack him, they were still hitting him. And it really affected, and it showed. The fumbles, the interceptions. He had one interception, but that dude is a total gamer. And Michigan, they seemed out of sorts after the Texas beating. Now, they play AR State, and you could see they wanted to make a change at quarterback to Alex Orgeai. They wanted to go ahead and make a change, and you could see he was splitting time in that Arkansas State game. He was splitting time, and then they moved him to the starter for this game. Now, I can tell you this: Michigan cannot move forward in the Big Ten with a quarterback who's only going to throw for 32 yards. That's not going to work. I'm sorry. That's not going to work. And you can clearly see they wanted to rush and run the ball very effectively, very well, and they did it with almost 300 yards rushing. But again, you can't do this to every team in the Big Ten. Ohio State's not going to let you do this. Oregon may let you do this because Boise exploited them. And so Oregon, like I said, I'm still not sold on Oregon being that dominant team that's going to come into the Big Ten and make waves. Yes, they are going to beat some teams. They are going to beat some really good teams. But by that, they also are going to get beat up. And this was one of those games where USC just got beat up. The first half of this game, the score at halftime was 14-3. 14-3. And at that time, Miller Moss and the gang and Lincoln Riley, they could have dialed it in. But the Trojan faithful, they had something to say about it in the second half of this game. We'll get into that when we come back from a quick 20 from an unofficial sponsor of the show. This is Big Vern. Drop the spot. Yes, Taco Bell, Live Moss. Order online, download the app, or visit the good folks at your local Taco Bell. Taco Bell, Live Moss. So in the third quarter, Miller Moss and the USC Trojans exploded, putting up 14 points in one quarter, and it looked like things were actually on a way back up because that game was still in hand. That game was still close at hand after a pair of field goals from the Michigan Wolverines. And it looked at that time as Michigan had given USC their best shot. They dealt blows, like I said, not only in the run game, but they also beat up USC in between the hashtags, and they went at their necks. However, going into the fourth quarter, this thing was really tight. It was really tight. And for people who don't understand football, the momentum at that point, it was all with USC. Because if you look at what that score was, we're talking about that score was 20-17. They still had a shot to come back and win that thing. They were, and I think in our Big Four games of the week when we still covered it, they were a 3-point favorite. And I was like, I really don't. But then when you start a quarterback who's throwing for 32 yards in a game, that's not going to happen. That's not going to cut it. That's not going to cut it. And so Michigan, they're on a 2-game win streak. USC, don't hang your head. It's not the end of the world. But they have Wisconsin next. Wisconsin, they got decimated by Alabama. But that's another rough and tumble game. The thing that benefits USC the most is that game is going to be in Pasadena, because Wisconsin has to come to Trojan Land to get that fight on. And then USC is going to go to Minnesota before having another big showdown with Penn State. Now that game's in Pasadena. That's where you'll see collectively, is USC going to be that fourth team in the college playoff out of the Big Ten? Because we already know Ohio State's going. I'm not too sure Michigan's going to be there. I'm not too sure Illinois is going to be there. I don't know what Oregon is going to do. USC is a toss-up. Penn State doesn't look like a lock right now. These are those teams vying for those 3 slots. Now, however they fall, if Michigan can't lose a game, put it like that. Michigan has to stay on track with these games and how they play, because Michigan, after this game, this was a good win for Michigan to get their feet wet and get back into the mix. Michigan plays Minnesota. That game's at the Big House. Then they go to Washington. They cannot lose that game. Then they play Illinois. That is a very rough and tough game. Illinois doesn't stop playing. We saw what they were able to do against Nebraska, and they were able to keep fighting back in that game until it was over. I don't think 32 yards through the air is enough to beat this team. I just don't. Then there's Michigan State. Then there's Oregon. Indiana is going to beat Michigan. I'm going to go on record right now. Cignetti has that game in Bloomington. If Michigan loses to Indiana, they will be effectively eliminated from being that 4th team in the Big Ten to make it to the 12-team college playoff. There's no way that you can justify them having 3 losses or 4 losses within the conference and still getting into that college playoff. So congratulations to Michigan. You all beat on USC. You had to hold on to that game down the stretch because it did look like you all were tired. It did look like you didn't have enough left in the tank to finish that game. But like I say, you can't lose to Indiana, which that's a possibility. You could lose to Indiana. You may lose to Illinois. These are very tight games, and they may be in the margin of error. However, you being the reigning and defending national champions, you have to go ahead and give them the benefit of the doubt. But if they take 2 losses within the conference, you're not making the conference championship game, and there would be no justification for putting Michigan in that 12-team playoff because it's just not enough time. It's not enough room, and you all have the schedule that will disqualify you. But I could be wrong. The good people of Ann Arbor, let me know, do I have it right? This is your boy